Okay. Yeah. So let's
try something. Okay. So hi everybody. I'm not going to give a large talk about things. During the conference, many people have approached me, and I think also there have been discussions among people where I wasn't participating. And what I would like to do in this session, there's also kind of a follow-up session at I think 6 or 6:30. So it can continue, and the idea of that session actually at 6, 6:30 is to continue and then walk, buy beer, and discuss there. So what I would like to do is I hope that some people actually who talk to me, I'm not sure how many of those are actually here now, but I'd like to have people who have ideas about particular things on how to do them, be it P2P, key distribution, mesh networks, all kinds of things, or even things based on WebRTC, or basically rough ideas on what would be interesting to you, to actually speak up. And then we split, is my suggestion, into little groups. Because obviously if we are like 30 people or something, it's not really good to have a 30 people discussion. So I'd rather like to split into little groups discussing matters. And for that, I would like to ask people if they want to basically present some ideas that they had in conjunction with what I talked about on Monday, and a particular, be it a statement or some kind of area of interest. And then we try to split up a bit further into little groups. So, anybody who would like to start? Something, right? And I'm just going to make notes so that we keep a track record, basically, of ideas, and then we can distribute accordingly. And if that doesn't work, I would still like to split up into groups, because otherwise it's just so that a few people will talk and the others will just listen. And I would rather like to have a bit more of an engaged, like peer-to-peer discussion. Yes, I put it up now here, and yes. Okay. So, anybody? Yes.
Yeah, my name is Balthazar. I approached Holger after his talk on Monday, and I told him that though he mentioned the case of Edward Snowden and the NSA and PRISM, and he basically during this time we actually learned that in France, I'm from France, we have the exact same software running, and we have like 6 different groups of people, like the equivalent of the NSA, the equivalent of the CIA in France, that can have access to this database. So this is kind of scary. And I went to him and said, but you failed to mention a website. It's called Prison Break. I don't know if anybody has heard of this website, prisonbreak.org. Yep. So on this website you can find open source and free software, actually alternatives to a lot of commercial software, OSs like Windows, of course, but VoIP like Skype, a lot of things. And among them, I found 2 of them that really interesting, but it's not really peer-to-peer, so that's why I'm okay. But then I will just talk about them anyway. They're made by the same company called Whisper something. Sorry? Yes, exactly. And they're called TechSecure and Redphone. And the idea is super simple, but seems really powerful, and I would like to discuss about it to people interested. So the TechSecure thing, they both work with a public and private key security, RSA encryption. And basically the first one, the TechSecure one, will encrypt all your local text messages, and will actually encrypt the outgoing messages if the other person you're talking to is also using TechSecure, and it will do the exact same thing on the other person's phone. Sorry, and it's just a regular text messaging thing, messaging app if the other person is not using TechSecure. So I think it's really easy programs to master, and it could be a good way to secure your communications. The other one is just using the same thing, but for voice over a telephone, so it will encrypt your voice and decrypt it on the fly on the other people's phone. So yeah, I've tested one of them, and if some people want to actually install them on their phone and try and see it working, it could be really cool. And that's pretty much it. That is pretty much it, not pretty much shit.
Basically, that would be about trying this out basically.
Yes, exactly.
And seeing how it works.
And seeing them working, because I've installed the thing, but I've never used the PGP, the RSA encryption. So I'm just sending plain text messages, and I actually don't know if it works. So it seems cool, but I haven't seen it working. It's sorry. I don't know actually. I have an Android, I know, but though if you install, I'm sorry to troll, but if you have an iPhone and you try to secure communications, it's like trying to patch a sinking boat. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, end of the troll, and thank you for your attention.
So, anybody else?
Like it's from BitTorrent Inc., I think, and it's still in alpha. Priska. With SKA. Like PRISKA. Yeah, and it's called BitTorrent Sync. It's still in alpha, but it's like an alternative to Dropbox that will store the data locally. And even like I don't have a server at home, but I use it on my computer, and then it will sync whenever I go online. I don't rely on it yet because it's in this early stage, but it's interesting to try out, I think. I've had it for like, I think 2 months, but like, yeah, something like it. I haven't checked the source, if it's open source. Okay.
Thank you. Does anyone else have something they want to add?
Thank you. My name is Batman. I have an idea for a project that would be called Batwork. It's a network, but it uses audio for communication. Maybe you have heard from an example project in the Netherlands. There's you can go visit the cinema and have a film, and if one of the main role characters receives a text message, you receive it as well on your phone. This signal is transmitted in the ultrasonic field, and but the same technology you can apply for ad hoc networking with very, very minimalistic bandwidth, of course. But this idea occurred to me when I was looking for my colleagues, and I wanted to WhatsApp them, but I had no connection at all. But I knew that there's tons of people with laptops and handheld devices, Android, you name it, smartphones. If you could somehow utilize their ability to communicate. And I did a small experiment, sending Morse code, very basic, example PYTHON, and parsing that with another laptop. And it's still very experimental code, but if anybody feels like, this is a nice like toy project that can grow and maybe scale up to, instead of Morse, use like an old modem or a fax modem and this kind of stuff, and scale it further. And I don't know, it's just toy project. Maybe just exchange thoughts on this and maybe let it grow. Yeah, that's it.
While talking recently, some days ago, there came up the idea that we could maybe use GPG public key on a server and base the authentication for this web application on the public key. So it basically checks whether the user has the corresponding private key, either by signing something or by encrypting something, maybe in a sort of challenge response way. And so this solves maybe two problems. A, you have a rather secure authentication. You don't need to store a password that could be hacked by brute forcing it. And you would even have the public key of many users on that server, so it would be sort of a public key server also, maybe. That's the idea.
This is a bit. Haven't completely thought, but I was thinking about the Wi-Fi networks, and so I have thinking about a bit how to essentially, in the end, a worldwide mesh network where we either make hardware or a software distribution for routers where they will form a mesh network with your neighbors and still similar to the project span that Holger was talking about, but just sort of a brain dump.
Okay, so I have also just two short bits, somewhat more extensive discussions I had with people. One is with Muharrem, but he's, I think, not here, from OpenStack. Yes, we were thinking about brainstorming an hour already about a project that for talking about it, named Friend Cloud. And Friend Cloud would be something where you basically have resources and you allow your friends to also, and resources in the sense of a VM, like running code on something. And I would basically allow friends of me to use that, and maybe also friends of friends. So it's not a public cloud, so that basically anyone can run anything, but rather something where you allow friends to access resources. And by sharing those, you suddenly you can use that for testing or something like this, but also even for, like in the long run, also for running services out of that. Especially if those nodes have internet connectivity. So kind of like a federated, friend-based cloud. So that's something I'm also interested in. I cannot type at the same time, so that's one thing. And a number of discussions were held on PGP key distribution. And the key distribution thing is a big problem, basically. I mean, how do you know if you have a certain target address, like an email address, what is exactly the fitting public key? Because once you know that, it's very easy to encrypt the message, and then the person who gets it can decrypt it. And so this kind of key discovery and key finding, there are PGP servers, but it's not, I mean, they might have basically arbitrary PGP keys registered for the email address. And the relation basically going from the email address to PGP is not a safe one, basically. And there was one idea which I liked and discussed a bit with some people, which is, for example, distributing the keys with each mail. So when I'm sending a mail to a mailing list, or when I'm sending a mail to a friend, that I basically add the public key, my public key, to every mail, And that means that if basically your mail client just sees that header, it just stores those PGP keys, like from multiple people. And then when my mail client actually wants to send out a mail, it looks up in this local storage, do I have that PGP key? And if yes, I just encrypt it. Now, of course, this is only enough against a passive attack. You know the difference between passive and active attacks, I think? Passive attacks are just somebody recording things. That's basically most of what is currently happening, probably. Active attacks is if somebody really gets into the wire and pretends to the one side to be the one person and to the other side to be like the other. And that's why if I send you a PGP key, then somebody can basically intercept it, send another PGP key, and then when that person thinks he has the right PGP key, he encrypts, but the man in the middle actually gets the real text, and I get the message with my PGP key. So for me, everything appears fine. That's the classical active man-in-the-middle attack. So the crypto communities have been focusing on these kinds of attacks very much. And basically my idea on this is that that's great, but by focusing on this man-in-the-middle attacks, it became so hard to do key exchange that nobody does it, and we are even open to passive attacks. So we're basically trying to fight one thing, don't manage it because it's so inconvenient to do that. It's very hard to do the trust thing there, that we don't even have protection against basic snooping. And that's a bad outcome, I think. So I personally think, but that's my opinion, it's better to first focus on getting the passive attacks sorted out and then move on to actually also guard against active attacks. Okay, so these were like two separate discussion discussion topics I basically had. Key distribution, because it underlies many of the current questions on how to do this. So I think, let's see if we can split up. I think each group shouldn't have more than 6 or 7 people. So even if 10 people are interested in the same topic or so, they should just still get together. And we don't have that much time now. Like I said, at 6 o'clock it's going, or 6:30 or 6, I'm not sure, it's on the table. It's anyway going to continue, and then there's a bit of more open-ended pie beer discussion. So maybe instead of like doing voting and all this, maybe we just make it really like row-wise, that 5 people basically get together and then they decide on what kind of topic they actually want to discuss. It's probably easier than making complicated distribution optimizations now. So if that's fine with you, then we just start with that, and then we take it from there. And who's still interested, then we basically we could try to make a closing session, but in this session there's only 10 minutes left, so let's just get started a bit, and then maybe agree to meet up again at those who are interested at 6 on bit past 6, and then continue from there. Okay, so just do like 2 rows everywhere and decide on what you are interested in and discuss that basically.